and welcome to episode 4 of Down on the Korner, our National League East preview show. I'm your host, Mark Rosenman. Tonight, we are joined by our KINER'S staff members, AJ Carter, John Coppinger, Howie Karpin, and Charlie Sutton, as well as KINER'S guest contributor, Barry Lyons, who played 5 of his 6 Major League Baseball seasons with the New York Mets, including 6 games as a rookie during that memorable 1986 season. He's currently the manager of the newly rebranded Lexington Counterclocks of the Atlantic League. And of course, you guys, the Zoom audience, hopefully more people will be joining us as we go. You guys also make the show, so we're going to open it up for questions a little later for you guys as well. And since opening day is just 2 days away, what better way to start with a couple of questions for Barry? The thrill of opening day, 1986 spring training, you battle Ed Hearn for the backup spot. You win that spot along with one other rookie on that team, Kevin Mitchell, to make the team on opening day. Walk us through what goes through a baseball player's mind when he knows in spring training he's competing against a certain player for a spot, that daily grind, that spring training, and all the pressures that come with it.
Well, I basically had that same scenario all but the final year that I was with the Mets in 90. I was pretty well locked in 90 after Gary had left, but 86 through 89, I went to spring training uncertain at best that I was going to be the backup catcher. We knew Gary was obviously the number one guy and was the legendary catcher that he was. But 86, Ed Hearn was certainly one of the viable candidates. John Gibbons, who was a number one pick by the Mets a few years earlier and one of their top prospects. I had to battle him every year. And then Clint Hurdle was actually in spring training with us that year after having been, maybe he was 86 or 87. But anyway, it was a battle to the end, and no one ever told me I made the club. I just was the last guy standing in the clubhouse at Huggins Stengel Field as we were making plans to leave town to go to Jackson, Mississippi, to play an exhibition game there before heading to Pittsburgh for opening day. So it was just by attrition that I realized I was on the club, but no one actually called me in. Davey didn't call me in. No one told me I made the team, which I get asked a lot. When I got called up, how did that work out? Well, I didn't. I kind of morphed into the backup position because I was the only guy left in camp.
Pretty amazing considering all the gyrations they go through these days, hidden cameras pulling into the manager's office to let them know that they made the squad. No one even let you know you made the opening day roster. That's crazy. So, what does make, I was speaking to, one of your former battery mates, Ed Lynch, the other day, because there was that whole to-do over, Brett Batty being sent down and Vientos being sent down. And Ed and I had a conversation, and I think Ed's probably going to come on the show next week. But Ed Lynch said of, roster moves, he says there are, it's the most overrated day for general managers, an opening day roster. It means nothing. Because it's all about options, what players have options to be sent down, and it's all about the business side of it. But as a player, what does making an open day roster mean? What did it mean to you? What do you remember most about opening day?
Well, it was the final realization of a dream coming true. I mean, to be on that New York Mets opening day roster in 1986, when Davey declared in our first day of spring training that we're not only going to win, we're going to dominate. And I can remember those words vividly being said in the clubhouse and out at Payson Complex. But it was a thrill for me, to say the least. It was a day that I longed for a very, very long time, and was just thrilled to be a part of it. As I mentioned earlier, we opened in Pittsburgh, so it wasn't opening day at Shea Stadium, but obviously we had the home opener several days later.
Hey Barry, I gotta ask you this. the lasting memory I have of your career was we were watching it clearly, was the grand slam you hit against the Giants. I believe it was Kelly Downs in 1987. I'm sure at some point before then you realized that you belonged in the big leagues, and you came up with a phenomenal team. But what was the moment, whether it be on or off the field, that you realized, hey, not only am I actually in the big leagues, but I belong here?
Well, that's a great question, John. That actual feeling, I think, came before I got there. Actually, when I had the really great year in 1984 at High A Lynchburg, where I was MVP of the Carolina League and really put myself in the picture for the Mets for the future. And that was the moment where I knew I was going to be a big leaguer. I had dreamed about it, hoped for it, and wanted to be, obviously. But after that season, I knew that I was going to be a big league ball player. But obviously, December 10th of that same 1984, the Mets traded for Gary Carter, and that threw a roadblock up for me. But certainly, he was obviously a key addition and a great guy for the Mets to pick up, and certainly a cornerstone for the team in the World Championship run and a Hall of Fame player. But when I got there in '86, I was still a little unsure, really. Once again, I didn't get told that I made the team. So there was still some uncertainty, what am I doing here? And I guess I'm on the team. And then when we, boarded the plane the next day to head to Mississippi before going to Pittsburgh, it was sort of surreal. And Mississippi being my home state, I had played in Double-A Jackson, Mississippi the year before. So that was special. And that my major league debut actually I got to do it in my own home state at the home ballpark there in Jackson. So a lot of really neat things transpired there. But it was really probably not till '87 where I really felt comfortable and really felt that I was a major league player and I deserved to be here, and that I, had a role to play and really felt part of the team. '86, I was there. I only got 2 starts in the first 6-7 weeks. We won both games. I got an RBI in each game, but it was not much playing time. And then they sent me out to get some at bats, brought Ed Hearn in, and Ed took advantage of the opportunity he got and had a really good season as the primary backup to Gary. But I didn't really know, in answering backtracking to your question, that I belonged there until probably spring training of '87 when I won the backup job outright and had a very good year for my rookie year as a backup catcher.
Barry, pleasure to talk to you. I don't think you would remember me, but I covered the team when you were there as a radio reporter.
I remember you.
I was one of the jerks who held the microphone in and really didn't know anything about the game. But I wanted to ask you, the pitcher-catcher relationship is so fascinating. Without being too critical, who was the toughest guy for you to handle on the Mets staff?
I got to be careful with what I say.
No, I have an idea of who it is.
I'm
just
kidding.
curious.
I'm kidding here. He's a dear friend, but and a great teammate. But Ron Darling was the toughest, not because of catching his pitches per se. It was having him trust me enough to let me call the game. 9 out of the other 10 pitchers trusted me. I earned their respect. I earned their trust, and they, to a man, I think they would tell you they loved throwing to me. They liked the way I set up. They liked the way I called the game. They liked the way I took care of them. I mean, that was my primary job, was to be that pitcher's best friend that day and help him to be successful. But Ronnie, as we all know, is a thinking man, and educated to the nth degree, I guess you could say, and he wanted to call his own game. And I don't think I was the only catcher that had, some difficulties with Ronnie. I mean, he was a great pitcher and a great competitor, and I loved him as a friend and a teammate. But he was a little difficult to get on the same page with.
Wow, interesting. Thank you.
Barry, let's get back to the final cut day. There's some people, Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, who got sent down very late in spring training. And what is the sense that goes through the locker room, when at the end for the guys who get sent down very late? What do you say to them, and what's the feeling? Is there a sense of relief I made the team would even think about them, the guys who are going away?
Well, it's tough. I mean, this is a tough business, and a lot of times it's strictly a numbers game. When as someone who's been sent down many times or been released or whatever, when you get the first time, it's very, very painful. You kind of get hardened to it after a while, and when you've been let go as many times as I eventually was. But the first time I was set down or let go, released by the Mets, I didn't handle it very well. It was very painful. But I would assume that the veteran guys could see the pain in those young guys' faces, and they probably knew before they did that they were getting sent down. And I would hope that they came over and encouraged them and spoke positively to them and let them know that you did all you could do. You performed beautifully. You did what they could ask you to do, but just go back down and keep grinding, keep plugging away, and keep battling. That's about all you can do. So I'm sure Beatty and Vientos, it had to be disappointing. I mean, they're young, top prospects that had good spring trainings, and you would hope that would be rewarded. But their day will come. As hard as it is for them right now, I think in both cases, it's best that they play every day for right now, and that's what happened to me in '86. I got sent down. I jumped from Double-A. I was there for the first 6 weeks and I only got 2 starts. I only got 6 at bats, and that's tough. So it's better that they go and play for a couple of months. And obviously injuries happen and all kinds of things will and can transpire over the course of a season. But it's definitely disappointing for the young man. And I'm hoping that some of the veteran guys would go and console him a minute, but more than that, encourage them and remind them of what the future holds for them.
I have one more question, since Howie asked you the question and you brought it up. We might as well get it out there before we open the room up to questions. But Ron Darling had a particular nickname among his teammates. You mind sharing that with us and why he was called that?
Mr. P. For Mr. Perfect. Ronnie, I like I said, I love Ronnie. He's Ronnie. He dances to the beat of his own drummer, so to speak. But he, everything was perfect in Ronnie's world, and that's sort of where that derived from. It was Mr. Perfect for a while, and then later shortened to Mr. P. And it was affectionately took it. But I don't know that he cares to be referred to as Mr. P anymore. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But, several of the guys on our club still, call him that. I don't know that he allows the general public to do so, but he's Ronnie. He's, Ron, but to most of us from the 86, 89 era, we know him as Mr. P.
Nice. All right, we're going to throw it open to the room. If you guys have a question, I see Steve already raised his hand. So Steve, go ahead. What do you got?
So a friend of mine reminded me of this story, and I have fuzzy recollection of it from '87. and it was, I want to say, a simulation game against Tom Seaver, and you went 6 for 6. And Tom was asked by a reporter after the game, who was the toughest batter he's ever faced, and he said Barry Lyons.
That is actual factual information you share, Steve. It was a unique situation. Obviously, Tom Seaver of 1987 wasn't, quote unquote, the Tom Seaver at that point in his career. I think most of Mets fans know he was in the other dugout with the Red Sox when we won the World Series. He was injured, had hurt his knee midway through the season and hadn't pitched in the last couple of months. But he was there on that top step. I'll never forget. I was there in street clothes. I was injured, but I was there, and I was sitting right behind home plate actually, and had perfect vantage point to both dugouts as that 10th inning unfolded, and it was quite a scene. But Tom came back. Doc, as we know, tested positive that spring and was in Smithers, and I think it was Ojeda got hurt, and Tom hadn't officially retired, and quietly, unbeknownst to most of us, he began working out, and the Mets signed him and brought him in. He traveled with us through a bullpen, and then he pitched an exhibition game down in Tidewater. And then we were in Montreal, I think, after that, and he threw, as Steve mentioned, a simulated game. Tim Tuffle, Dave Magadan, myself, and I think it was Billy Allman were the backup players that would hit off of him. And we beat him up pretty good in Montreal. And then 4 or 5 days later, we're back home in Shea and had another simulated game. And you know, it was simulated. And, you know, obviously there weren't players manning each position, and it wasn't real game situation, but he was trying to get us out, and we were trying to get some live at bats. And I had quite a day. I had hit him pretty good in Montreal, and then I had 2 line drives, I think, to start the day. And then the next time up, he buzzed me under the chin and knocked me on my rear. But the next pitch, I hit it in the bullpen in left field. So I had quite a day, and I actually think Sports Illustrated quoted me as saying that I should make the stimulated All-Star team based on that performance, something to that effect. But the press conference a day or 2 later, yeah, that question was asked to Tom, and I know tongue in cheek he declared my name, but it's still an honor to be mentioned by one of the greatest pitchers of all time, and much respect for Tom Seaver. But it's a neat little side note that I wear that feather in my cap with some pride.
I know there is a bunch of people watching on the Facebook, on the page and the group. If you want, I just did put the link underneath your comments. If you want to hop in the Zoom room, you're more than welcome. Yeah, that's what we're here for. We want you guys to come in. We want you guys to be part of it. We want the interactivity with you guys. I see that Steve Brook is out there, Ray Avila, Jesse James Burke is out there. So if you guys want, you know, I just threw the link. Feel free to pop in. Michael, you have a question. Go ahead and ask Barry.
Yeah, hi Barry. How are you?
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
I'm well, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So my question for you, I'd like you to go back a little bit. As kids, we all dreamed of playing in the major league, but early on, I learned I didn't have that thing called talent to get there.
That makes it tough.
Yeah, it does make it tough. So I'd like to know, when did you realize that you could get on a path to get there? Was it a coach that told you, or did you come to that realization yourself that said, hey, I can get to the major leagues if I do X, Y, and Z? How did you come to the realization?
Well, that's a great question, Tully. And I was blessed to have, first and foremost, 2 wonderful parents that sacrificed for my brothers and I enormously so that we could pursue our dreams. But I was the youngest of 4 boys, and my 3 older brothers were great athletes. They were great role models. And, you know, back here down in South Mississippi, we didn't have much to speak of. We had great parents, and we grew up with not a whole lot, but we certainly loved our sports. And our dad was our coach in the early days. My oldest brother, Kenny, was a quarterback at Ole Miss right after Archie Manning. He played baseball 1 year in college, but had several knee injuries and shoulder injuries that forced him to end his career at a Dallas Cowboy mini camp. He had signed with the Cowboys after his career. My brother Tommy was drafted by the Cleveland Indians out of high school. Dad, I think, pushed him more to go to Ole Miss also on a baseball scholarship. And my brother Pat was an outstanding football player and baseball player. So I had the genes first and foremost. I had the innate, inborn talents that, you know, that came with that. But I had 3 great role models in front of me that led the way and gave me the opportunity to watch them and learn as their careers unfolded, and the good things that happened, the not so good things that happened, the highs and the lows. And it gave me an edge with kids my own age. I knew the game inside and out well beyond my years of age. My experience was far greater. But I still didn't know, but it was a hope, a goal as young as 6th grade when I wrote an essay for a school paper, a project that declared my goal, my ambition is to be a pro baseball player. And then that essay I found in my mom's inside sleeve of her Bible after Hurricane Katrina 17 years ago. And I still have it to this day. So I was blessed, you know, immensely by being the youngest brother, and I absorbed everything I could. I watched, I learned, and you know, I applied it to the games that I played, and had some great coaches along the way. One American Legion baseball coach that came into town just for that year was very key. Player in my life, a key teacher in my life, and then my college coach, Dave Boo Ferris, Boston Red Sox legend, was my college coach, and he was a great mentor as well. And then throughout the Mets minor league system, John Cumberland is an overlooked pitching coach that a lot of Mets pitchers really learned so much from, and there were others certainly, and Mel Stottlemyre obviously was the great pitching coach for the Mets by the time I got there. So very fortunate to, but I studied, I watched, I listened, I learned, I took in everything that was presented to me, and all those things combined allowed me to be a big league player, and I'm forever thankful for all of that.
Thank you.
Steve, you got another question? Go ahead.
Yeah, related to what Tully just asked you, was there a player that growing up that you idolized or modeled your game after?
There were 2 primarily. One was before I became a catcher, and one became my guy when I became a catcher. But Brooks Robinson was the guy that as a young kid, the Orioles were you know, one of the better clubs in baseball. In my first memories of as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, and I played third base and pitched for the first half of my youth playing days until 10th grade, and so Brooks was the guy. But I sort of switched allegiances to the Yankees at that time, and I was really fond of and tried to emulate and really pattern my game after Thurman Munson. He was, you know, maybe not the greatest catcher. I still think Bench was the best catcher that I ever saw, but Thurman Munson had the whole package. I mean, he was a a gap hitter, a doubles hitter, an RBI guy, a clutch guy, and a down in the dirt, gritty catcher and leader. And that's what I think when I look back, and if people want to look back at my career, I think they see some of those qualities that I learned by watching Thurman Munson and idolizing him. He was the guy I really admired and patterned myself after as a catcher.
Barry, it's funny you mentioned Munson because Munson was the second best catcher of his era behind Bench, and he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
I agree with that 100%, Howie.
1989, you're catching Sid Fernandez, and there are no defensive assists in the game. A very rare oddity. I think you caught 4 foul pop-ups in the game. I'm not sure. Did you realize what was going on, with that statistical oddity at the time?
I had no idea, and I thank Mark and whoever put that one out there the other day. That was I sensed I was the answer as soon as I read it, but to know that I caught 4 pop fouls, that's an oddity. That wasn't one of my strengths, catching some of those pop fouls. I missed my share of them, but Sid Fernandez was a great pitcher. I loved catching him. He was a fly ball guy. So if anybody on the team was going to have that type of statistic or that type of game, it would have been him, as he got a lot of fly balls. His ball was up in the zone, and players had tough time getting on top of it. And so that was neat to see that trivia question, and to be the answer to that was an honor. But I enjoyed catching Sid. Sid was when I mentioned earlier about trusting, Sid never could call his own game if they drew it up like they do now with all the data and stats. Sid would still be looking for help from somewhere. Mel took care of Sid, and Mel taught us as catchers how to take care of Sid. And he just, you put down whatever you put down, he was just going to execute the pitch. And I think I've heard Ed Hearn maybe tell the story, or Mackie Sasser, that's what it was, this fantasy camp, that Mel told us, if Sid threw a good curveball, go to something else. If Sid threw a bad curveball, call it the next pitch, no matter what the count is. He's gonna spin it in there perfectly, and and it was a fact. But Sid, I don't know much about this spin rate and all these technical data-filled things these days, but I would say Sid's curveball spin rate had to be up there with the best of guys here. It really had some tight, serious spin on the ball. It really broke a lot, similar to Doc's from the right side.
Yeah, he had that funky delivery, though, threw hitters off. That's why I thought he might have been the answer to the toughest pitcher you had to handle. His ball moved all over the place, and then he hit it so well that hitters didn't pick it up that quick.
No, he was a joy to catch. All of them were. I mean, I'm not knocking Ronnie in the sense I didn't like catching him, but he was,
right.
The toughest to get to trust me as a catcher. And I've heard the same thing from other catchers that caught him over the years as well. But no, Sid was really pretty easy going. I mean, he trusted anybody and everybody. He didn't want to have to call his own game. He just tried to execute the pitch that was called, and he did a great job of that, obviously.
Awesome. All right, Ed, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, on the other side, who was your favorite pitcher to catch? I know it wasn't me, but
well, my first big league start in '86, I caught Doc, and obviously Doc Gooden, Dwight Gooden, in the mid '80s was the premier pitcher in all of baseball, and an amazing, super talented guy. But the guy I probably got matched with more than anybody that was really my best friend on the team was David Cone. And Coney and I When he came over in the trade from the Royals, he was lockered right next to me at old Huggins Stingle Field. And from that very moment, first day, we became best of friends. But he was the funnest to catch. He had the drop down Laredo, he called it, the sidearm slider and fastball. He had the 4-seam fastball, 2-seam fastball, a curveball, and then a slider that broke forever. And a pitch that he really never used early on was a split finger, and that became his go-to pitch later in his career with the Yankees. But he seldom used that in the early days. Everything he had was wipe out. I mean, it didn't matter. He was that dominant, and he had that much variety of pitches and variety of breaks. And I caught him early in his career when he still hadn't really fortified that split finger pitch that became so big for him later on. So he was probably my favorite, but once again, the pitching staff in the era that I was fortunate to play for the Mets was by far the best in all of baseball.
Absolutely. And I highly recommend David Cohn's book about pitching. One of the best ones written out there. A phenomenal read for sure. Okay, so this is the National League prediction show. The interesting thing about predictions, and this is what we love about baseball, is obviously we can't binge watch a season. It's just got to play out. Some of the things we're going to say 1 week from now is going to be outdated because someone's going to get injured, or there's going to be a rookie that nobody knows about that is going to set the league on fire. That being said, we still do it every season. We sit down, we make predictions because it's what we do, and it's fun. So obviously the National League East, one of the most competitive divisions in baseball, no question about it. 3 teams have a legitimate case to finish up on top, that being the Braves, the Mets, and the Phillies. All 3 are built to win now. For me, I'll go first. I think the loss of Dansby Swanson is huge as far as the Braves go. I think they make up for some of the offense with Sean Murphy. But here in New York, we talk about the black hole that was DH and catcher for the Mets. The Braves have to find an answer for left field and DH. Their best options right now are Marcell Ozuna and Eddie Rosario, who were both awful last season. Then you take a look at that pitching staff. Max Fried, Kyle Wright, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton. Do Fried and Strider progress or regress? Who closes for them? Who gets the bulk of the catching? Is it Darno or is it Murph? I finally think this might be the year that the Braves, they're like the Cardinals. Somehow they always get the most out of all their players. Sooner or later that stops. I think this might be the year that the Braves don't get the best out of their players. And for that reason and that reason only, I'm going to go with them finishing 3rd. Now, going back and forth. Last year was the first year I didn't predict the Mets to come in first place. I picked them for the wild card. And I was leaning that way this year until the Rhys Hoskins injury. Okay. Once that happened, the pendulum shifted for me. No Harper for half a season. That means Derek Hall and Josh Harrison are the designated hitters. That for me cancels out the upgrade that Trey Turner provides. Hoskins healthy, Harper healthy. There's no way I'm picking the Mets over them as much as I would love to. I just think Trey Turner was a huge get for them. Bryson Stott, Alec Boehm, Brandon Marsh. Phillies are counting on those guys, young hitters, to take a step forward in 2023. If they all do, Phillies are going to have one of the deepest lineups in baseball. If they don't, those bottom 3 spots in the order are going to be a serious liability. I also think, we've heard so much about JT Realmuto's hips and, he's 31 years old. I think this might be the year he finally breaks down a little bit. Bullpen, Sir Anthony Dominguez and Jose Alvarado, they were exposed a lot last year. I love, the people that listened to me on our show last year know how much I love Ty Walker as a pitcher, as a player. I think the home run ball is going to hurt him in Philly. Citi Field's a big stadium, doesn't play the same as, Citizens Bank in Philly. So I think that's going to be a little problem for him. I still think Philly's going to end up in second. I think they're going to get the wild card. I think the Mets, it's a big if everything goes right, that means Scherzer, Verlander need to stay healthy. It's a big ask given their age. Senga needs to make that smooth adjustment to the major leagues. I think Pete's power number is probably going to go up a little bit. I don't know if Lindor is going to have the same season. I think he's going to have a very good season. I don't know if it's going to be MVP vote caliber season, but I do think they get more out of the catchers. I do think they get more out of the DH, which is not saying much because they got 0 out of it last year. And I think that Buck needs to really be a master when it comes to, working that bullpen. And I think he will. I think the Mets also learned something from, not winning the division last year. So I have the Mets, Phillies with a wild card, the Braves, not a wild card, Marlins, and the Nats. So AJ, you're up next. And I'm sure you're probably going to disagree with everything.
Of course. They say a lot about winning the offseason and not winning the season. And unfortunately, I think that's where the Mets stand right now. They won the offseason, got a lot of press with the signings, things like that. I am very, very concerned about the age of the team. They're a very old team. Old players get hurt. Old players can suddenly, lose their mojo very, very quickly. You got 2 pitchers at the top of the rotation, late 30s, 40. We already saw Quintana, who was supposed to be the innings eater, is now out until, June now? It looks like Carrasco, we know, gets hurt. Peterson's a nice ball player. He can't carry a pitching staff. We all know what the problems in the bullpen, who's going to close. But I'm also concerned about Marte, who's older, can get hurt. He's coming back from an injury. Escobar, he had a very bad year until September, and he's had a very bad spring. He was at 1 for 14 in the World Baseball Classic. I saw the one hit. It was a home run against Israel. That was his one hit for the WBC. I don't like the fact that they sent the future down. I think they're relying too much on older players, too much assuming that people who are older will automatically play to the back of their baseball card. I don't think it's going to happen. I have them finishing second, so we'll get to that. The Braves, you look in the dictionary under sustainability, and you've got the Braves. They have people, they find a way of cycling new players through. They did that last year. Was it Harris in the outfield? They have a closer. It's Spencer Strider's been closing for them. I think he shows some promise. He throws the ball hard. I think Fried's on the upswing. I think Fried is a really, really good pitcher. I think they can make up for losing Swanson. They augmented their catching position. Darno is a good person to catch and maybe DH, maybe alternate a little bit first, but that also needs to be spelled. They have Acuna, who came back from an injury last year, should be much better this year. I think they're going to win the division again. And I really, have them finishing first. I have the Mets finishing second, largely because of Philly's injuries. I really, if Hoskins hadn't been out, Harper were playing a full season. Again, winning the offseason, I think Trey Turner was a good piece. They're going to hit the ball like crazy. I still have concerns about their fielding. Anytime you have Nick Castellanos in the outfield, that is an adventure. You have to play Kyle Schwarber in the outfield, that's an adventure. But if it weren't for the injuries, and I'm a little concerned, they have Wheeler, they have Aaron Nola, who's also not getting any younger, but he's a great pitcher. I think they would have finished ahead of the Mets, maybe ahead of the Braves. I have them finishing third. I have the Mets and the Phillies making the playoffs, however, as like last year. And, the fear is the Phillies have Harper come back and things gel, and suddenly they're a much more formidable team in September than they were in April. Don't ignore the Marlins. You talk about building. Could the Marlins be this year's Orioles? I'm not sure. I think they're still another year away. They have one really lockdown starter. Will he still be there by the trading deadline? I think so. I think their plan is to keep him there. With Sandy Alcantara. Look at them. I think next year is the year to break out. And who's the other team? The Nationals. They say the phrase used to be, is Washington still in the league? I think you'd say about Washington that this year also.
I think my favorite Washington one is the Little Rascals. Was it first president, first in blah and last in the American League.
Yeah, first in war, first in peace, and last in the American League.
American League, yes, my favorite Little Rascal line ever. All right, Cop, what do you got?
Well, I'm gonna side more with you, Mark, than with AJ. And first of all, yes, I I do believe, let's just get it out of the way, the Nationals are going to finish last. I think the Marlins are going to be competitive. Well, and with the Nationals, listen, we're at least going to see Dom Smith 550 at bats. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. The Marlins are going to be competitive. You know, they wanted to hit more, so they made the trade for Luis Arias, for Pablo Lopez, and they went and got Yuli Gurriel, and their hitting is going to be very good this year, but I don't think their pitching is going to catch up to them. You know, I think losing Lopez is going to hurt. I think the experiment to put Jazz Chisholm in center field is going to be very interesting to watch. I'm not sure it's going to work. As Met fans, how many infielders did we see play the outfield? Because they're fast. They could do
Juan
it.
Samuel.
Master Juan Samuel, Keith Miller, Todd Hundley, all of them. Put them all in the same category. So I do think the Marlins are going to be competitive. I think they're going to bring the win totals down from those top three teams a little bit in the National League East, but they're going to finish in fourth. I'm with Mark on the Braves. I didn't like their offseason as much as I like the off seasons of the Mets and the Phillies. I think they had it in their plan that they were going to lose Dansby Swanson. And I think they just expected, like the Braves always expect, to plug in that young guy, and then he's going to take off and be the rookie of the year. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen because Vaughn Grissom couldn't even win the job. So now they've got Orlando Arcia there. So and the guy and in terms of Sean Murphy, great get. But is he replacing a guy that you really needed to replace? And Travis d'Arnaud did the job very well last year. So are you upgrading all that much at catcher? And like Mark said, left field and DH, it's going to be very dicey for them. So someone in that division has to finish third. I'm going to say it's the Braves. I think the Mets will finish in second, and here's why. I think the Mets are as good as any team in the National League East. I think if they decided that their goal was to win 100 games again and win the division, I think they could very easily go for that and try that. But I don't think they're going to do it. I think their goal this year, after seeing Max Scherzer limp to the finish line and have that awful outing in the playoffs, I think their goal is to get to the playoffs as healthy as possible and make sure Scherzer and Verlander are at the top of their game in October and not April. I do think they're going to go with the 6-man rotation in certain points, and I think it'll cost them some games in the regular season. So that's going to, I think that alone is going to cost them the division. Just the fact that they want to pace themselves and make sure they're healthy in October. And for that reason and that reason only, I think they're going to finish in second place. The Phillies, yes, losing Hoskins is going to hurt, but losing Edwin Diaz is going to hurt for the Mets also. I always compared the Phillies to a jelly sandwich. You got the bread, which is Aaron Nolan, Zach Wheeler, and the jelly is a bunch of power hitters that can't play defense, like Harper, like Rhys Hoskins, like Schwarber and Castellanos. Now they're a little more balanced. I think that Brandon Marsh cured a lot of those ills that they had when they traded for him. And I think Trey Turner, like you guys have said, is a monumental get for the Phillies, not only with the way he hits, but the way he solidifies that defense up the middle. And you're going to see that from him and Stott this year up the middle and Marsh. I think that's going to make the Phillies a much better team than they have been. And I think they're going to try to ride that momentum into a division title. And I think they're going to do it. Now, are they going to be there come playoff time? Can the Mets beat them in the playoffs? Absolutely they can. And I think for a lot of the reasons that Mark said, that the injuries, I think, might catch up to the Phillies. Whereas the Mets, I think they're going to play it cautious and make sure, as sure as they can, that they're healthy at the end. So I do think the Phillies are going to win the division. I don't think that means the Mets are going to be out of it in the playoffs by any means, even with as old a team as they are. Because I think Buck and Billy Epler are going to take care of them. And I do think they're going to get another bullpen arm come trade deadline to solidify that situation.
All right, before we go to Barry, we're going to go to the youngest member of the KINER'S staff, Charlie Sutton. Charlie, give us your take on the National League East. Then we'll get Howie's comments, and then we'll round it out with Barry, and then we'll throw it to the room for a couple of final statements. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like clockwork. We start from the bottom with the Nationals. You know, when Patrick Corbin starting the 47th straight opening day, and it's going to end the season with a 6.6 ERA. I think we know where the Nationals are going to end up. The Marlins, yeah, like everyone else is saying, I think fourth place is, you know, pretty obvious considering the strength of the division. Again, like, you know, some people said that they're going to be the Orioles of this year. To the extent that it's going to be a fun team to watch and take some wins away from the upper echelon teams. You know, the starting rotation, Sandy's excellent. Obviously, Luzardo, Rogers, great young pitching. You know, the Chisholm move to center field is going to be interesting. But, you know, I'm not a huge Arise guy, but, you know, with the banning of the shift, he's going to have obviously, you know, more opportunities, big ballpark. So third place, you know, like what Mark said and what John said, I have the Braves as well. You can't discredit, you know, you can't dismiss the Swanson, you know, move to Chicago. You know, shortstop's a premier position, and you know he was obviously having a peak year, and you know they did what they had to do. But I'm a big Strider guy. I think any guy with, you know, swing and miss stuff like him is going to have, you know, a real lengthy career. As for Fried, I see some regression. He's more of a pitch to contact guy. You know, very low exit velocity over the past couple of years, but you know, how is that sustainable? You know, and then with Michael Harris also, I think there's some regression there. I think, you know, after, you know, a year of film, these pitchers are going to start to adjust to his, you know, deficiencies. I like the Sean Murphy signing. I've been a fan of him for a while. I actually do think it's a real upgrade from d'Arnaud. D'Arnaud's had some flashes here and there, but I think Murphy really solidifies his position. Yeah, so I have the Braves third. Before the Hoskins signing, I didn't think there was a real wrong answer here for second and first. But I do have the Phillies coming in at second. I just really think at the end of the season, when, you know, the Mets and Phillies are duking it out for, you know, the division championship, I really think the bullpen is going to be a real issue. And I know the Diaz, you know, loss is, you know, real significant, but I mean, having Craig Kimbrell as your projected closer, I mean, the guy hasn't been Craig Kimbrell in 5 years now. You know, he was taken out of his role last year with the Dodgers. I think Dombrowski's gonna have to make a move at the deadline. Defensively, I still think, I know the Marsh is, you know, a real high level defender and a premier position in center field, but I still, you know, Bohm is a real liability at third. Turner, you know, some of the metrics, you know, like him at shortstop defensively, some don't. Dodd's kind of a little unproven. So, you know, and Hoskins had a real good year at first last year defensively, but I still think there are some issues. And, you know, what Mark said, I think that was real spot on with Real Muto, you know, playing that, sitting back there, you know, the age is really catching up to him. He's had, you know, real success back there defensively, but, you know, let's see if that can sustain itself. But yeah, no, I think because of the Hoskins signing and the, you know, the bullpen situation, I have the Mets coming in first. If Verlander can even, you know, Cy Young after missing 2 years, it's incredible. If he can even, you know, if 75% of that season would be great for the Mets, you know. And I do think the Mets definitely have better options in the bullpen. I love the Robertson signing. Ottavino is probably, you know, he's probably never find his way into the ninth closing role, but you know, sweeping sliders deadly. And you know, I love the Nimmo re-signing, premier position. I think he'll have a real breakout year, steal more bases. But yeah, no, that's my predictions.
All right, as we said at the beginning of the show, Howie is kind of prohibited from making predictions because of his position as an official scorer with Major League Baseball, but he is not prohibited from making comments. Howie, before we go to Barry, you want to comment on any of the predictions we made?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me start with this. The Mets last year were 50-26 in division games. They won 14 against Washington. They dominated Philly pretty much. They're not going to play as many games against these teams this year, but you got to figure, you know, that the Philly number may even out a little bit because that's how baseball is. As far as the Edwin Diaz loss, yeah, it's a big loss. But remember this. Closers save games. They don't win games. They save games. And whose bullpen really scares you in the rest of the division? everyone's got problems with the bullpen, the entire sport. There's no real reliable guys out there from year to year. You guys have seen it. You watch enough baseball. It's almost like a crapshoot every year with these bullpens. You don't know who's going to be up. You don't know who's going to be down. I'll tell you something about Spencer Strider, Charlie. His mechanics are not really well refined, and he's going to get hurt because he doesn't use a lot of his lower body. That may not happen this year, but to me, that's an eventuality with him. The Braves, yeah, I think they're going to be set back. I agree with Charlie and Michael Harris. I think he's going to take a step back. His numbers last year against lefties were not that good. He made most of his, resume on right-handed pitching. Now, there's not that, many great lefties in the league, but I agree with Charlie in that they got more of a track record on him. I think his numbers come back a little bit. The addition of Trey Turner, yeah, it's a great addition, but this is also a guy who's missed time in his career and can be hurt. Now, last year, it didn't happen. He stayed on the field in his walk year. There's no guarantee he's going to stay on the field. He's had a history of injuries. So the unpredictability of the whole division, pretty much makes it wide open. Miami's improved. You look around their lineup, it's a much better lineup. It's a veteran lineup. Gurriel, Segura. They're using Joey Wendell at short. That's, that doesn't enlighten me so much. But they've got Jose Iglesias as a backup. So they're going to be pesky. They're going to make their bones in the division. I think the key for the Mets is, just to get to the playoffs. Again, don't push too hard if you don't have to. They have the goods there. I think they have the goods to at least cover. Look, even if Diaz was healthy, you know how baseball is. Was he going to be as dominant as he was last year? That could be a career year for him. 3 years ago, people were making the assumption he was garbage. Now they're making the assumption he's going to be great again in 2023. Yeah, it's a big loss, but I don't think there's a guarantee that he was going to be that dominant. So they're going to need it from other sources as well. I like their lineup. Their lineup's decent. Maybe it's not as powerful as the Phillies. Okay. But I think they're right there with the rest of the division. I think it's wide open. I agree with Mark that the Braves are going to take a little bit of a step back. I think probably the division maybe comes down to the Mets and Phils in the end, but the Braves will somehow be there, and it's going to make things very interesting now that you have to play the whole, major leagues. You're going to have a series against every team. You have 4 games against the Yankees. The Mets were 9-11 in their interleague games last year. They're going to have to pick it up there as well because you're playing more games against the other league. So I think it figures to be pretty exciting, and I think we're in for some good things this year.
Totally agree. And the interesting thing is, again, with Diaz, Jim Cerny and I wrote an article about that, and I totally agree with you. Listen, I love Edwin Diaz. I love everything that Edwin Diaz brings to a game. But all you need to do is, you look at the greatest closer to ever play the game, and that's Mariano Rivera. And the year that he got injured, all right, Rafael Soriano saved 42 games, and the Yankees went a round deeper in the playoffs without Mariano, with Soriano as the closer. So you're right. It's never a given. Volatile position, year to year, it changes. And Buck's going to really have to navigate that. Now we go to Barry Lyons to get his take on the division. 33, what do you got?
Well, I certainly learned a lot from listening to all you guys, and obviously the general consensus, the Nats are going to be at the bottom, and there's no disputing that or any questions with that. So, but you guys all made very valid, very interesting points. The issues with bullpen, just to go on Howie, and every club has issues. I mean, yeah, and I agree that Diaz is a huge loss, but certainly, history tells us that they can do without him if they have to, and they have to, so they'll manage in that, and they'll be fine, I do believe. And then John's talk about pacing themselves, and the Mets wanting to get to the postseason is more important than winning the division, or maybe not. That wasn't his words, but that's the general thought that I have, is that that's certainly a strategy that certainly may come into play. And the reasoning being those aging pitchers and the health of those guys coming down the stretch. I mean, Phillies got in, at the wire at the end and ran the table basically to get to the World Series a year ago. And I think that's a model more teams are going to look at. I mean, yeah, we all like to win a division, certainly, but do you sacrifice your postseason run with all hands on deck to win the division first? And certainly that's a philosophy or a thought process that I'm sure several teams will be dealing with in the coming months. But the Marlins, much improved in a lot of areas, I think, and certainly a team on the rise. One of you mentioned them being maybe the Orioles of this season. I think they're going to be much improved. I think they're going to be very competitive and going to take some of the wins away, as one of you mentioned as well. The Braves, they've been the Braves for quite a while. Losing Swanson is not a good thing, I don't think, but Arcia, I've seen him play. He came up through the Brewers system and a very, very talented player. He's obviously matured a lot over the years, been with the Braves a couple of years. He had all the talent to be a star shortstop before his demotion and before his, playing several positions with the Braves. So I don't think it's going to be a major downgrade. But the presence that Swanson has in the clubhouse and in Atlanta itself, and just sort of the vibe that he gives off, and as far as the team is concerned, I think they're going to miss that. But as far as the talent at shortstop, I don't think they're really missing much. Arcia is going to play a good shortstop, and they got the young Grissom behind him. So I'm seeing the Phillies really having a tough time without Hoskins and Harper, depending on when he comes back. Their bullpen is better than it once was, certainly, but all bullpens are subject to disappointments and failures, and without the clear-cut guys that you're going to be able to depend on, I think that's going to be an issue for them. So the Mets, I still don't like their DH situation. Vogelbach could have a huge year and really shine and do well, and I'm assuming that Pham is going to get a lot of the right-handed DH at bats. At least that's what it looks like from what I'm seeing. I don't know that he's the answer, but certainly an upgrade from Ruff, I do believe. But nonetheless, still, I'm really shocked that the Mets haven't done something in a much grander way to get that 5-hole hitter that they could really depend on to protect Pete and to drive in the runs that Pete don't drive in. They've missed that. I think the lineup itself is solid with the exception of the DH spot, and then third base Eduardo is is a mystery, really. Great September, but other than that, not too good. So all in all, I like the Mets. I'm picking them to win the division. I think the Braves are going to come in second. The Phillies are going to struggle a little bit, and I think they're going to fall back even closer to the Marlins. I'm not giving them the edge. The Marlins the edge over the Phillies. I say Phillies 3, Marlins 4. But it's obviously the best division in baseball, the most competitive division in baseball. I think it's leading up to a very exciting season, and I'm looking forward to watching it. Looking forward to chipping in every now and then with KINER'Scorner.com whenever you guys invite me on. I look forward to it, but I'm going to be manage my own club, but obviously I'm a big baseball fan. I'm a Mets fan. I still am very in tune to what's going on at the major league level, especially with the NL East and the AL East. But MLB as a whole, it's still very near and dear to me, and I'm excited to be able to chip in every now and then. So thank you.
A pleasure, Barry. Love having you on. AJ, you want to make a comment?
I want to throw one thing out to the group. We've talked about the division, how competitive the division is, but the prize really isn't winning the division. It's winning the pennant and winning the World Series. So if you look at the competitive NL East, you ask me who's going to be the NL pennant winner, it's the Padres. Does any team in the AL East have the talent, have the ability to beat the Padres? Anybody out there want to jump in? John?
I think the Mets have the ability to beat the Padres, and I also think they have the motivation to beat the Padres after what happened last year. You look at guys like Scherzer. The difference between Max Scherzer and Tom Glavine when they both had those awful outings. When Tom Glavine had that awful outing against Miami, end of the 2007 season, you remember the quote that he had: "Disappointed but not devastated." Then contrast that with Scherzer, when they, not after the game one fiasco that he threw, but after they got eliminated, he said, and forgive the language, everybody, it was like a kick in the balls. So you just look at that attitude, and you know, and you see how competitive he is. As long as his body holds up, as long as he physically can hold up, he will have the mental, the mental motivation to when he sees San Diego on the other side, and he'll remember what happened last year. Now, it may not make a difference because he will most likely be facing the Padres plus Fernando Tatis Jr., so that might be a problem. Yeah. But then you've got Verlander backing him up, and not to say that I would make the Mets the favorite over the Padres by any means, but I do think that they have the talent to beat them, and I also think that they will make the necessary moves at some point, whether it be bringing up Brett Beatty or getting somebody at the trading deadline like David Bednar of the Pirates or somebody else for the back end of the rotation to save the other guys some innings. So I think they might not be on a level with the Padres, but I think they're close enough that they make the right moves in the during the season that'll make a difference for them.
Yeah, I agree also. And one other thing I want to throw out there is, and I don't get it. I don't get the Eduardo Escobar, piling on. Granted, he had a great September that saved his season, but his stats are better than Mark Canha, and no one says anything about Mark Canha, but everyone's quick to write off Eduardo Escobar, who is a glue guy in that locker room, great glove. He still hit 20 home runs and drove in 69 RBIs and basically carried the team in September. At the end of the day, you are what the back of your baseball card says you are. And that's what he is. He's a 20 to 69 home run guy.
Yeah, but you don't have a young prospect on the rise in left field.
But more was expected. Escobar. Canha performed as expected. Escobar until September did not. Canha gave you what you thought you'd get from Canha, pretty much. Yeah. Gave, but Escobar did not. And you look ahead at the spring and what happened in spring training, what happened in the World Baseball Classic, and it raises the question: is it last April all over again until September? And can the Mets afford to wait until September for Escobar?
I think Escobar's going to have a good year. I think he's going to have a very good year. I think he's one of those guys too that maybe took a little time. He took a little time adjusting to playing in New York. So it happens with some guys. It happened with Beltran. It happened with Lindor. I think Escobar is going to fall under that category. And I think he's not going to have September of 2022 all year, but I think he's going to have a nice year. And you could still bring Beatty up and say, okay, and move it Escobar to be the designated hitter. So he's going to play a role on this team, no matter what happens with Brett Beatty, as far as I'm concerned.
Totally agree. And one other thing that Ed Lynch did say, he says, general managers don't put a lot of credence into spring training numbers or, winter league numbers. He says, people, especially with Beatty, he had 6 games of AAA baseball is not enough. People just got to stop trying to fast forward this guy's career. 6 games at the AAA level. We also forget he hit 188 in his 38 at bats last year in the major leagues. Okay. He had a great spring. That's fine. Let him get some seasoning. He'll be here. Let's not rush it. All right, we're gonna wrap it up, guys in the room. If you want to make some comments about what you think is going to happen in the National League, raise your hand. We'll quickly go through it. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment about AJ mentioning Escobar and struggling, and the Mets fans being who they are, and being cynics and having kind of prospect envy of other teams, how all their kids are coming up and we're sending ours back down. My thought is that they're the experts, and if they think those two guys aren't ready, I trust they're not ready, and that maybe they need time, need seasoning, and that hopefully in the latter half of the year they'll be ready to go to help the team down the stretch.
Awesome. Michael, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make this short and sweet. Die-hard Met fan, ever hopeful. You guys have the analytics. Mets in first. I don't care what happens after that.
Awesome. Ed, we'll round it out with you.
I think, like most teams in baseball, it's going to come down to pitching, and it's going to come down to Verlander and Scherzer, and can they stay healthy and can they perform? And if they can, I think we're going to be in the playoffs, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Listen, guys, I want to thank everyone that came into the Zoom room, but also lots of guys I see were watching on Facebook Live. Don't be afraid. Join. I kept on putting the link out there. Senga. These guys sang it already. Don't be afraid to hop in the Zoom room. That's what we really want. It's well and good that you guys are watching, but listen, so far we've had Hojo, we've had Barry, we've had Nelson Figueroa, we had a surprise pop in by Ryan Thompson. So, we want you guys to get the opportunity to hear their stories and ask questions. So that's what we really want to build here. Sense of community, close to 900 people on the page already. Jesse James is commenting on Facebook. This is great. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, guys. Jesse, feel free to join the Zoom next time. So we really want everyone here. And we're looking forward to a great season. Probably the next show will be Monday. It looks like most of our shows are going to be Monday, because Monday is most of the time it's an off day. So we want to, we don't want to miss games. So we'll probably just be on Monday nights throughout the season. And so we have two favorite teams, obviously. Well, I shouldn't say that. We have three, well, maybe four. So we have the New York Mets, we have the Long Island Ducks, we have the Lexington, Counterclocks, and we also have the Staten Island Ferry. But Ficky's not there anymore. Who is the manager of the Ferry Hawks? So I don't think we
Homer Bush.
Homer Bush.
So we don't need to be a Ferry Hawks fan anymore. All right. So there we go. All right, guys. Have a great night. And, we get underway.
Poor Homer Bush.
Exactly.
Homer Bush.
No love for Homer Bush. All right, guys. Have a great night, and let's go Mets.
Enjoy it, guys. Thank you.
Right around there. Thanks, Barry.
Thanks,
Be good. 30
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You
Bye,
too,
guys.
Jack.
Barry.
Thank you.